Have you ever had a disagreement with your spouse that left you feeling frustrated, unheard, or even distant? A moment where you felt like your feelings didn't matter, or your concerns weren't addressed. It's easy to feel this way when tensions rise in a relationship. But the reality is, every marriage will face disagreements, whether it's over finances, chores, parenting, or even just daily frustrations. Maybe it started with something small, like forgetting to take out the trash, spending too much time on your phone, or a difference in parenting styles. Before you knew it, voices were raised, feelings were hurt, and what seemed like a minor issue became a deep emotional wound. You're not alone. Every couple, no matter how much they love each other, will experience conflict. Conflict is a natural part of marriage, but the way you handle it can either strengthen or weaken the bond you share with your spouse. Conflict is inevitable, but destruction is optional. Some people assume that a good marriage or relationship is one without disagreements. But that's a myth. Even the strongest marriages face moments of tension. Why? Because marriage brings together two unique individuals, different backgrounds, different personalities, different ways of thinking. The difference between a thriving marriage or relationship and one that feels stuck often boils down to how disagreements are addressed. Couples who approach conflict with grace, patience, and a willingness to understand each other are more likely to emerge from disputes with a deeper connection. But when conflicts are left unresolved, they begin to fester and grow. Bitterness, resentment, and misunderstandings can take root, and before long, a small disagreement can feel like an insurmountable obstacle. Consider this real-life example. Think of a couple where the husband grew up in a family that avoided confrontation, while the wife comes from a background where issues are addressed immediately. In an argument, one shuts down while the other pushes for a resolution, leading to even more frustration. The problem isn't the disagreement itself. The real issue is whether the couple knows how to navigate their differences in a way that strengthens their bond instead of tearing them apart. Let's take another example. Imagine a couple, Sarah and John. Early in their marriage, they had a small disagreement over how much time they should spend with each other versus with their individual friends. Neither of them addressed it openly, and instead, they both silently carried their frustration. Months went by, and every time Sarah planned a night out with her friends, John felt neglected. What started as a minor disagreement became a source of constant tension. Finally, John lashed out during an argument, accusing Sarah of neglecting their relationship. They both felt hurt and misunderstood, but the issue had grown into something far bigger than it initially was, simply because they hadn't addressed it early. This highlights the importance of dealing with conflicts early on, rather than letting them grow into something that causes lasting damage. Conflict resolution isn't about avoiding disagreement. It's about handling disagreements with wisdom and understanding. The Bible gives us a powerful truth in Mark 3 verse 25. A house divided against itself cannot stand. This means that when division and unresolved conflict enter a marriage, they weaken the foundation of that relationship. Over time, small resentments grow, emotional distance forms, and couples become more like roommates than life partners. But let's take this further. Conflicts do not destroy marriages. Unresolved conflicts do. It's the unspoken words that create emotional walls. It's the grudges that poison intimacy. It's the pride that refuses to say, "I'm sorry." For example, imagine a couple where the wife feels unappreciated for all she does at home, but instead of expressing her feelings, she withdraws. Meanwhile, the husband notices her coldness but assumes she's just in a bad mood. Over time, resentment builds, until one day, a simple disagreement about laundry turns into a full-blown argument about never feeling valued. This is how unresolved conflict grows into something bigger than it ever needed to be. Today, I want to help you understand how to turn conflicts into opportunities for deeper connection. Disagreements don't have to drive you apart. They can actually strengthen your marriage if you handle them with wisdom, patience, and understanding. In this teaching, I will share how to address issues early before they escalate, why seeking to understand before being understood transforms communication, the balance between compromise versus sacrifice, why some disagreements will never be resolved, and that's okay, the power of apologies and forgiveness in rebuilding trust. If you're ready to turn conflict into connection and build a marriage that thrives, let's dive in. 1. Address issues early. Many marriages don't break apart because of one big argument. They crumble under the weight of unresolved small issues that build up over time. What starts as a tiny misunderstanding, ignored or brushed aside, can turn into deep resentment. Think of a leaky faucet. A single drop of water seems insignificant, but if left unattended, it will not only waste water but can also damage the entire plumbing system over time. In the same way, small, unaddressed conflicts in marriage may not seem like a big deal at first, but they will eventually wear down love, trust, and connection. For example, a husband frequently makes last-minute plans with his friends without informing his wife. At first, she lets it go because she doesn't want to seem controlling. But over time, she feels disrespected and undervalued. Months later, when he casually mentions another plan, she explodes in frustration. The husband is shocked. He had no idea it was an issue because she never voiced her feelings earlier. The real problem was not the hangouts. It was the fact that the issue was ignored until it became an emotional volcano. Resolve small issues before they escalate. Here's the secret. Marriage isn't about avoiding problems. It's about learning to solve them quickly and effectively. Don't let the sun go down on your anger. Ephesians 4 verse 26. If something bothers you, address it before it grows into bitterness. Use the 24-hour rule. If an issue still bothers you the next day, it's worth discussing. If not, let it go. Communicate concerns with love and clarity. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," say, "I feel unheard when you dismiss my concerns. Can we talk about it?" Be proactive, not reactive. Talk about potential challenges before they turn into full-blown fights. Silence in the presence of conflict is agreement. If you ignore it, you empower it. This means that avoiding a conversation about a problem doesn't make it disappear, it makes it grow. Couples must learn to face issues with maturity and wisdom, choosing to discuss them openly rather than pretending they don't exist. For example, a wife feels unappreciated for her daily efforts around the house, but instead of expressing her feelings, she assumes her husband should just know how she feels. Meanwhile, the husband assumes everything is fine. Over time, the wife's silent frustration turns into coldness, distance, and eventually emotional disconnect. If she had voiced her concerns early, it could have saved months, or even years, of silent resentment. Unresolved conflicts don't stay small, they grow like weeds in a garden. The best way to prevent major problems in marriage is to pull out the weeds while they're small. Address disagreements early, communicate with love, and make sure minor issues never turn into major battles. 2. Seek to understand before being understood. One of the biggest causes of conflict in marriage is miscommunication, not necessarily what is said, but how it is received. Many times, an argument escalates because one spouse feels misunderstood, unheard, or invalidated. Most people listen to respond, not to understand. They hear words, but they don't truly grasp the emotion or the deeper message behind them. This leads to frustration because one partner is trying to express a need, while the other is busy preparing a defense. Another example, a wife says, "You never listen to me." The husband immediately becomes defensive. "What do you mean? I always listen." "That's not true. I just heard everything you said." At this point, both are stuck in their own perspectives. But if the husband took a moment to step back and listen beyond the words, he might realize that his wife isn't accusing him. She's expressing a deep emotional need to feel valued and heard. Her real message might be, "I feel unheard. I don't feel like what I say matters to you. I want to feel emotionally connected." If the husband responded by saying, "So what you're really saying is that you feel unheard?" it would shift the conversation from conflict to understanding. Listen actively before responding. Listening is an art, and it requires humility. True listening isn't just about hearing words, it's about understanding the emotions, desires, and fears behind them. How to listen with understanding. Pause before reacting. Instead of immediately defending yourself, take a breath and focus on your spouse's feelings. Reflect back what you heard. Say, "What I hear you saying is, This reassures your spouse that they are understood. Ask clarifying questions. Do you mean that you feel I'm distracted when we talk? This prevents misinterpretation. Validate their feelings. Even if you don't agree, acknowledge their emotions. I see why that made you upset. Then share your perspective. After you've made your spouse feel heard, express your side calmly and respectfully. Example of poor listening. Wife, you don't spend time with me anymore. Husband, that's not true. We went out last weekend. Example of active listening. Wife, you don't spend time with me anymore. Husband, are you saying you feel neglected or disconnected? Wife, yes. I miss the way we used to talk and have fun together. Husband, I understand now. Let's set aside intentional time this week just for us. This simple shift turns arguments into connection because when a person feels understood, they become less defensive and more open to resolution. Wisdom is the ability to hear what is not being said. True wisdom is not just hearing words, but discerning the deeper message behind them. Let's take an example. A husband comes home from work, exhausted, and his wife says, "You never help with anything around here." Instead of reacting with frustration, "That's unfair. I work hard too." He can listen beyond the words and realize that she's really saying she feels overwhelmed and needs his support. A wise response would be, "Are you feeling like you have too much on your plate? How can I help?" This small change can completely transform the way couples communicate, reducing tension and increasing emotional intimacy. The key to resolving conflicts in marriage is not about proving who is right, but about seeking to understand each other's hearts. When couples master the art of listening, they turn misunderstandings into moments of deeper connection. Let me challenge you. The next time you and your spouse have a disagreement, pause and ask, "What is my partner really trying to say?" If you focus on understanding before defending, you'll see a huge difference in how conflicts are resolved. 3. Find a middle ground, compromise versus sacrifice. A healthy marriage thrives on teamwork, not dominance. When one partner always gives in while the other always gets their way, it creates an imbalance that leads to frustration and resentment. Marriage isn't about one person winning and the other losing. It's about finding solutions that work for both partners. This is where the difference between compromise and sacrifice becomes crucial. Compromise. Both partners make adjustments to reach a solution that benefits them both. Sacrifice. One person consistently gives up their needs or desires to accommodate the other. While sacrifice may seem noble, if it's one-sided, it leads to resentment, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. Navigating different lifestyles. A husband is an early riser who loves starting his day with prayer, exercise, and a productive morning routine. His wife is a night owl who feels most creative and alive late at night. At first, they struggle with spending quality time together because their schedules feel misaligned. The husband insists that waking up early is better for discipline, while the wife feels she's being pressured to change her natural rhythm. Wrong approach, one-sided sacrifice. The wife forces herself to wake up early but feels miserable and exhausted. She starts resenting her husband for making her change. Right approach, healthy compromise. Instead of forcing one person to adjust completely, they find a balance. They agree to spend intentional time together in the evening, but the husband also wakes up a little later on weekends to enjoy quiet mornings with his wife. Now, both partners adjust rather than one feeling forced to change entirely. Compromise strengthens marriage, while one-sided sacrifice weakens it. A marriage where one person always gives in creates an imbalance of power that leads to long-term dissatisfaction. Healthy compromise, on the other hand, fosters mutual respect and teamwork. How to find a middle ground in marriage. Identify the core need. What is truly important to each partner? Is it about time, emotional connection, personal space, or shared goals? Be open to adjustments. Instead of saying, "This is how I am, deal with it," both partners should be willing to shift slightly. Create win-win solutions. Instead of one person losing, find creative ways to make both partners feel valued. Check for hidden resentment. If one person feels they're always compromising, it's time for a deeper conversation. Example of poor compromise. A husband loves watching football every Sunday, but his wife feels neglected because she wants to spend quality time with him. If the wife forces him to stop watching altogether, he may feel controlled. If the husband ignores her concerns, she may feel unimportant. Example of a healthy compromise. They agree that he will watch the most important games but will set aside Sundays after football for date nights or family time. Now, both feel heard and valued. Can two walk together unless they agree? Amos 3 verse 3. The Bible teaches that unity is essential in relationships. Agreement doesn't mean uniformity, but rather alignment of hearts and purpose. When couples walk together in agreement, they find ways to honor each other's needs instead of constantly battling over who gets their way. If a couple has different views on parenting styles, instead of arguing about who is right, they can seek wisdom and counsel together to find a parenting approach that aligns with their values. A strong marriage is not about one person bending completely to the other's will. It's about two people working together to build a relationship where both feel valued, respected, and fulfilled. The next time you and your spouse face a disagreement, ask yourselves, are we finding a fair middle ground, or is one of us always giving in? How can we create a win-win situation instead of a win-lose battle? If you commit to healthy compromises, your marriage will be stronger, more fulfilling, and built on true partnership. 4. Agree to disagree respectfully. Not all disagreements in marriage need to be solved or won. Some differences will never fully align because they stem from individual personalities, backgrounds, and preferences. The goal of marriage is not to erase individuality but to coexist in love and harmony. Many couples fall into the trap of trying to change each other, believing that if their spouse were more like them, the relationship would be easier. But the beauty of marriage lies in learning to embrace differences, not eliminate them. A husband loves adventure. He enjoys spontaneous road trips, trying new things, and taking risks. His wife prefers routine. She finds comfort in structure, planning, and predictability. At first, these differences cause frustration. The husband feels like his wife is too rigid, while the wife feels like her husband is too unpredictable. Wrong approach, forcing change. The husband pressures his wife into taking last-minute trips, making her feel overwhelmed. The wife constantly criticizes his spontaneous nature, making him feel unappreciated. Right approach, embracing differences. Instead of forcing change, they find a balance. The wife agrees to an occasional spontaneous trip, while the husband respects the need for planning in other areas. They appreciate how their differences complement each other. The husband brings excitement into their lives, while the wife provides stability. Over time, they realize that their differences are actually a strength, not a weakness. Except that unity is not uniformity. Many couples confuse unity with uniformity, but they are not the same. Uniformity means being identical in thought, behavior, and preferences. This is unrealistic. Unity means coming together despite differences and working in harmony. How to respectfully agree to disagree. Recognize what's core versus what's preference. Not every issue requires agreement. Core values, like faithfulness, integrity, and commitment, should align, but preferences, like hobbies or personality traits, can differ. Respect each other's perspective. Instead of seeing differences as a threat, view them as an opportunity for growth. Choose battles wisely. Some things are worth discussing, while others are better left alone. A mature couple knows when to fight for change and when to embrace differences. Learn from each other. Differences bring balance to a marriage. The more structured partner can learn to relax, while the adventurous one can appreciate stability. Use humor and grace. Not every disagreement has to be serious. Learning to laugh about your differences helps keep the marriage light-hearted. Maturity in marriage is knowing when to fight for change and when to embrace differences. A wise spouse understands that some things should be adjusted, while others should be accepted. If your spouse has a harmful habit, e.g., poor financial decisions, unhealthy communication, it's reasonable to encourage change. But if your spouse simply has a different personality, e.g., introverted versus extroverted, structured versus spontaneous, trying to force change will only lead to frustration. The strongest marriages are those where both partners feel free to be themselves, while also growing together in love and respect. Marriage is a journey of acceptance, patience, and understanding. The goal is not to make your spouse a copy of you, but to love them for who they are. The next time you feel frustrated by a difference in your marriage, ask yourself, is this an issue that truly needs to change, or can I learn to embrace it? How can I appreciate my spouse's uniqueness instead of resisting it? When you shift your perspective from control to acceptance, your marriage will become a place of peace, joy, and balance. 5. The power of apologies and forgiveness. Marriage is a journey of grace and love. No matter how much a couple loves each other, mistakes will happen. Harsh words will be spoken, expectations will go unmet, and feelings will get hurt. The difference between a thriving marriage and a struggling one is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of forgiveness and genuine apologies. Holding on to past wounds keeps couples trapped in yesterday's pain, preventing them from experiencing the joy and intimacy of today. The weight of unresolved hurt. Example: a wife is deeply hurt by her husband's harsh words during an argument. He was frustrated and said things he didn't truly mean, but the words left wounds in her heart. She feels unappreciated and unloved, but instead of expressing it, she starts to withdraw emotionally. He assumes she has moved on because she's no longer talking about it. Time passes, but her hurt turns into resentment. A few weeks later, another disagreement arises, and suddenly, all the past pain resurfaces. The key strategy here is that apologizing is not about admitting defeat, but choosing peace. Many people struggle to apologize because they see it as a sign of weakness or as admitting they were entirely wrong. But a true apology is not about proving who is right or wrong, it's about valuing the relationship over the ego. A genuine apology acknowledges the hurt caused. I understand that my words hurt you, and I regret that deeply. Does not include excuses, not, I'm sorry, but you made me angry. Is followed by a commitment to change behavior. I will work on being more mindful of my words, even when I'm frustrated. Example of a shallow apology. Husband, I said I was sorry. Why can't you just move on? This kind of apology dismisses the other person's feelings and does not promote healing. Example of a genuine apology. Husband, I realize what I said was hurtful. That was never my intention, and I regret making you feel that way. I'm truly sorry. What can I do to make it right? This approach acknowledges the pain, shows remorse, and seeks reconciliation. Forgiveness is the key to moving forward. Just as apologizing requires humility, forgiveness requires strength. Many couples say, I forgive you, but deep down, they still hold on to the offense. They bring up past mistakes in every argument, use them as weapons, or silently resent their spouse. Holding on to unforgiveness is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. True forgiveness does not erase what happened, but chooses to release the resentment. Is a decision, not a feeling. You may not feel like forgiving, but choosing to let go opens the door to healing. Protects the relationship from becoming a cycle of pain and bitterness. Example of rebuilding trust after an offense. A wife forgets an important event her husband cared about. He feels dismissed and unimportant. She apologizes sincerely, but he struggles to let it go. Instead of dwelling on the mistake, he chooses to forgive fully and focus on the love they share. Over time, forgiveness strengthens trust because it shows that love is greater than any single mistake. Forgive as the Lord forgave you. Colossians 3 verse 13. Marriage is a reflection of God's love, a love that is patient, kind, and forgiving. Small blue diamond, if God forgives us despite our many mistakes, how much more should we extend grace to our spouse? Small blue diamond forgiveness does not mean condoning bad behavior. It means choosing love over resentment, healing over bitterness. When couples make apologies and forgiveness a lifestyle, their marriage becomes a place of peace, restoration, and unconditional love. Think about a past disagreement in your marriage. Was there an apology? Was there true forgiveness? The next time you face conflict, remember, an apology opens the door to healing. Forgiveness unlocks freedom and intimacy. Your marriage is more important than winning an argument. If you learn to apologize with humility and forgive with grace, your marriage will grow stronger, deeper, and more resilient. Rebuilding trust after an offense. Imagine this scenario. A husband and wife, David and Sarah, have been married for 5 years. They've generally had a happy marriage, but as with all relationships, challenges have arisen. One day, David forgets Sarah's birthday. He's swamped at work, and in his mind, the date slipped by unnoticed. To make matters worse, he fails to remember after work that Sarah had made special dinner plans for the evening to celebrate her birthday. Sarah feels deeply hurt. Her feelings of neglect and disappointment grow, especially because birthdays are something she values greatly. She feels unimportant and ignored. Her response is to quietly withdraw, not expressing her feelings right away. She's hurt and expects David to know why she's upset, hoping he'll apologize without her having to say anything. David's reaction. David, however, is oblivious to Sarah's emotions. He assumes she's upset about something else and doesn't immediately address the tension. The longer they go without talking about it, the more Sarah feels frustrated and disconnected. The unspoken resentment begins to build, but neither of them brings it up, hoping it will blow over. The apology. Days later, Sarah decides to open up. She explains to David how his forgetfulness hurt her deeply, especially because it made her feel like her efforts weren't valued. She tells him she feels dismissed when such important moments are overlooked. David listens intently, realizing how much Sarah was hurt by his thoughtlessness. He recognizes that his actions, though unintentional, caused emotional pain to his wife. He takes a deep breath, acknowledges his mistake, and says, "Sarah, I am so sorry. I realize I hurt you by not being present in the way that matters most to you. I never meant to make you feel unimportant." His apology is heartfelt, and it doesn't include any excuses. He goes on to express how much Sarah means to him and how he values her feelings. He promises to be more attentive to her needs and to make it up to her by planning a special evening out to celebrate her. The power of forgiveness. Now it's Sarah's turn. She could easily hold on to resentment and let it poison their relationship. But instead, she chooses to forgive. She understands that David's oversight wasn't a reflection of his love for her, but rather a momentary lapse. Sarah responds, "I appreciate your apology. It means a lot to me. I know you didn't intend to hurt me, and I'm choosing to forgive you. Let's move forward from here." Her forgiveness doesn't erase the pain, but it allows her to release the bitterness and resentment. This decision to forgive opens the door for healing and helps David to feel safe in the relationship again, knowing that his wife isn't holding the offense over him. Rebuilding trust over time. After this exchange, both David and Sarah realized that while the incident was painful, it brought them closer together. By apologizing sincerely and choosing to forgive, they took the necessary steps to restore their emotional connection. David follows through on his promise, making sure to be more mindful of special dates and doing little things that show Sarah he values her. Sarah, in turn, is grateful for David's willingness to make things right and for the way he worked to show her his love. Key takeaways. An apology is not just about saying, "I'm sorry." It's about showing understanding of how the other person feels and expressing genuine regret for causing harm. Forgiveness is a choice. Even when the hurt is deep, choosing to forgive is the only way to move forward and avoid living in the past. Both partners are responsible for repairing the relationship, with one offering the apology and the other choosing to forgive. By choosing humility and grace, David and Sarah learned to not only heal from this particular offense but to strengthen their relationship moving forward. Trust was rebuilt, and their love deepened, reminding them that every challenge is an opportunity for growth. God bless you.
Thank you for watching. If this video inspired you, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who needs it, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more life-changing teachings from Dr. Miles Munroe.